time for On the Farm in Alabama, bringing farmers and agribusiness the latest news from Alabama Extension and the Auburn University College of Agriculture. Now here's your host, Alabama Extension Regional Agent, Eddie McGriff.
Good day. I'd like to welcome everybody today to On the Farm in Alabama, and today as my guest I have Dr. David Russell, who is a weed scientist with Alabama Extension. David, we're coming up on wheat plant time in North Alabama. Of course, it's pretty dry now, so we really can't plant wheat, so you got a situation where some farmers are hoping it stays dry because we're harvesting cotton and finishing up with soybeans, but our wheat farmers are going to start wanting some rain. But we're going to talk about our number one weed problem in wheat, and that is Italian ryegrass. Just what's the difference between Italian ryegrass and just wild ryegrass?
Yeah, well, there's kind of a thin line there as far as practical implications between what we consider annual ryegrass and the Italian ryegrass. My understanding, Eddie, is that the Italian ryegrass is the one we have the most problems with. Even though it's still, by its biology, is still annual, it has modified genetically to survive a lot of what we've applied from the standpoint of herbicides. And what we found in that particular strain or that biotype is that it has developed resistance, and it has basically developed its morphology to develop clumps, if you will, rather than just, if you're familiar with the commercial varieties of annual ryegrass, we typically broadcast and it all comes up in a uniform stand. Italian ryegrass has genetically transformed to establish and develop these clumps, and so if you have those clumps that develop, obviously they're going to have a bigger, more robust root system, and it tends to almost act as a biennial. In other words, it kind of hangs around a little bit longer than our typical traditional annual ryegrass species. So obviously with a bigger, more robust root system, where it's modified, kind of changed genetically, it's obviously going to be more difficult to control once established.
Well, we have a new tool in our arsenal for ryegrass control in wheat, and that, or small grains, but that is the labeling of Anthem Flex.
Yeah. So peroxysulfone has been sort of our backbone as a pre-emergence in small grain production, winter wheat production. Acting as a pre-emergent to prevent seed emergence. Thus far, we've only been allowed to use Anthem Flex or Zidua or Fierce, those peroxysulfone products, as a delayed pre or early post-emergence application from the time that wheat is spiking up to about the 2-leaf stage. But now, with the work that we've done with support of wheat and feed grains commodity support and the support from industries, is that we now have Anthem Flex, which is peroxysulfone and carfentrazone. We're able to use that now as a pre-emergence. So a true pre, we're able to follow the planter, and so what that does is kind of open up the window of opportunity to apply and get our herbicides on the ground and hopefully activated by rainfall.
So will this be a key, because we have a lot of resistance to some of our other herbicides we use for ryegrass control in wheat?
Yeah, so far I don't think there's a known resistance, at least in Alabama, to peroxysulfone. So as long as it is applied correctly and we get rainfall incorporation, it should continue to be active against weed seed and ryegrass seed that's yet to emerge. There's a few caveats though with the use of peroxysulfone, Anthem Flex specifically. It has to be in drilled wheat. It can't be scratched in or broadcast wheat where you typically scratch it in with a turbo till. It does need to be drilled, planted at least an inch deep, We try not to put it out ahead of a big rainfall, because what we want to avoid is, as that seed is imbibing water, we don't want that first drink of that from that seed to be a high concentration of herbicide. So that's where we have some injury potential there, as that seed is imbibing water and beginning to emerge out of the soil. But as long as it germinates and that herbicide is still there, then we get rainfall. Typically, we have not seen any injury symptoms on winter wheat. So yeah, I do think it's a good tool. And again, rather than trying to hit that small window between spiking and two leaf, this kind of expands that timing, if you will. Basically, you can follow the planter up until wheat spiking, and that's considered a pre-emergence application.
Well, it seems like Anthem Flex is going to be an excellent option. What are some of the other options if a farmer's not able to get in there with a pre-emerge?
So you can still come back with several of those peroxysulfone products like Zidua, VRCZ, Anthem Flex, even in that delayed early post window. If you miss that, obviously we're trying to get this herbicide activated in the soil prior to ryegrass germination. And that's difficult, right? Because wheat and ryegrass are both germinating at the same time. If you miss that window, we've still got products like Axial Bold. It is a true post, active on grasses only. The Power Flex products, those are a couple of options we can use post-emergence if any grasses escapes.
Well, let's switch over and talk about the season that we just got through, and that is we saw several problems, weed problems that rear their head, and one that's been getting worse every year, and that is goosegrass.
Yeah, we've gotten several calls this summer of goosegrass escapes in broadleaf crops, believe it or not. You would think that it'd be relatively easy to control a grass in a broadleaf crop, but that's not been the case this summer. We've seen several cases where goosegrass, for example, has come through cotton production and in soybeans and in peanuts. I don't know exactly what the underlying cause is, but I suspect, at least for soybean and cotton, those Extended Flex or extend varieties, many of our farmers may be mixing the glyphosate with dicamba during their first post-treatment, and we have seen some antagonism activity where we get reduced control with a combination of those two on our grass species. So we encourage farmers that if they do have grasses that have emerged in their crop, to only go with Roundup or one of our graminicides like clethodim by itself, and then come back and target the broadleaves, or vice versa, not to mix 2,4-D or dicamba with glyphosate if you've got grasses. So I think that's the first issue. I think we're seeing a lot of misses with reduced activity when we tank mix, and then we're kind of backed into a corner following that once those grasses get their roots established. Many times we turn dry during the middle of the summer, and we know herbicides just don't work as they're designed to in those stressful environments.
Yeah, and also I know that y'all are collecting weed seed this winter. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, sure. So we are doing a statewide collective effort to screen for the goosegrass populations that we're seeing, and also the pigweed populations, whether it be palmer or water hemp or red root, whatever the amaranth species that we're seeing statewide that we're having trouble controlling. We are trying right now, as those seed mature, we're trying to collect those seed heads. We're taking them back to the main campus and in the labs and in the greenhouses, trying to grow those out and then screen them for various herbicides to see what level of resistance that we may have statewide. So where we have trouble, we can only guess that we may or may not have herbicide resistance. So this is sort of a more bigger collaborative effort to try to answer a lot of those questions.
All right, I want to thank David for being with us today on the Farm in Alabama. Everybody for tuning in.